everybody. Welcome to On the Edge of Entertainment, where I invite my friends from all over the globe, including Las Vegas, to come and talk to us about their showbiz careers. And today I have a very fun guest. It is Cody Dove from the Second City.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, people get us confused all the time, Cody and Cody.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a common thing. I get a lot of your mail. I'm going to send over some coupons that I have here. There's a stack of.
Awesome. Well, as you may have guessed, Cody is kind of a comedian, an improv artist. You know, he does stand up. He's amazing, obviously, because he's in Second City. He's even been in a film called The Yank, alongside with the late great Fred Willard. And he's got to improv with people like Colin Mockery and Bob Odenkirk. So, you know, he's been around, and it's really amazing to have you today, Cody.
Oh, I appreciate that. I don't normally have this here. This is all because of the state of how we. In real life, I'm 14, so this is a surprise for everyone.
I was wondering if that was a COVID beard.
Yeah, it's gotten out of control. I can't take it anymore. I never knew because I've never really had a beard. I grew one out one time for a mini series I was working on called Into the West. And you had to look a little like I was a cavalry officer, so I had a little bit of this, but it was probably about half of this. This is the most ever. And the people that have beards, I would like to say, oh, I have a new respect for these people. Not really. I think it's a bad idea overall. I don't know how they do it. The ice cream is a nightmare. And then it's getting super unruly. And then my friend yesterday was like, you should just trim it. I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. No,
Yeah,
no,
you
no. I
do?
mean, yeah, and I have to say, it looks pretty hot on you. It does.
Oh, thank you. In that case, maybe I'll keep it for a little while.
It does, but I've spoken to a lot of people that are doing beards these days, and apparently it's a ton of upkeep. So there's creams and salves and all kinds of stuff you're supposed to do with it. So it is a lot of work, you know. So what's
I
worse,
just
shaving
barely.
or?
Oh, that's true. One end or the other. Well, it's less maintenance for me because I'm doing nothing for it. But then I'm also like a little late to the. I'm late to the game for everything. I just figured out the guys could moisturize the other day. I'm like, oh, okay. So I got that going on.
I think that you enjoy it most because you're very tactile with it.
Yeah, yeah. That's another thing. I was talking to some buddies of mine, and I'm like, you can't. I never do this. I don't know. Sometimes I'll do this if I don't have it in real life, like you're thinking. But
Hmm.
now it's all the time. When I first started hosting some online shows for the Second City and some other projects online, I found out I was doing this all the time, and I'm like, oh, yeah, okay.
So
You
maybe
know
by
how this
the end
goes.
of this video, we will see how many times you touch your beard, and the best answer will win something.
That's great. Yeah, we'll get them tickets for when you and I have our next live shows or something.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to thank you because a couple weeks ago, Cody reached out to me and he had me do a little Madonna bit on the Second City. So I was so excited to do that. And it's obviously virtual, which is something really cool. You said that you've been doing a lot of virtual work with Second City.
Yeah, I was surprised on how much of it came around because I was on a cruise ship right before everything happened. In
Oh.
fact, in the same day they said, okay, we're not, I think it was like March 13th, and they
Mm-hmm.
said, we're not sure what's going on. They're not going to take any new talent on the ship. So can you stay through May 20th? And I go, oh, this is great. Yeah, I was only going to be there a month, which is a long time for a stand-up comedian. This is like my solo improv work and stand-up. And I go, oh, May 20th? Oh, this is great. I didn't count on these extra weeks. I'll stay out here for a while. And like yourself, we've been out there before. We know what that whole gig is like. And then in the span of 12 hours, they go, no, you're going home tomorrow. And so on the 14th, I was sent to New Mexico, where I'm at today, and that's where I've been. Um,
Oh.
so I thought when I got home, I go, well, this is painful. There's not going to be anything happening. And then we started doing online shows with the Second City, and then all of a sudden, next thing I knew, I was doing like 3, 4 shows a week, and which is great.
Wow.
But do you find that these shows are just as tiring as getting ready and doing a normal show? I do, but I
So
don't know.
much so. So much
Why
so.
is that?
You know, I don't, because we're doing the same thing. We're doing the same thing. We're getting out there. We're projecting that energy. And I saw you. You're an amazing host, and I
Oh,
couldn't believe the amount of energy that you had to have to control all the participants and also be the one, leading it, being funny and just trying to make everything work. It's
I
amazing.
appreciate that. I had a show a couple of days ago, and it was we channel all of our shows through Zoom, but then they took our main pipeline and then fed it through a different portal. So what would
Hmm.
happen is in improvisation, you ask for an audience suggestion, right? And then you do your stuff inspired by that suggestion. So I would ask for something, and then no joke, there would be a minute 45 until responses would start to roll in. So I had to fill that time with whatever nonsense would relate to the topic, or I would ask for like a location or something to inspire the us as improvisers. And then I'd have to
Uh-huh.
be like, what locations are you missing? Locations are a funny, just trying to fill that time. So, as you know, learning all this tech has been quite an interesting curve.
Yes, it has. It has. But, we rise to the occasion as we do because we know how to make work happen and get to that next point, Is this what you foresee doing for a while, or has anybody said you're opening anything anytime soon?
Now it's all speculation. We live, as much as we live in the time of great like potential for social change and stuff. We live in this is the most speculative era I think of all time, especially with social media, because people will say, "Okay, here's the thing: you have to wear a mask everywhere," and the next day you'll wake up and be like, "Masks don't really do that much," and then the next day it'll be like, "Masks are now the law." Uh, it's all speculation, and sometimes those are like reputable sources. You know how it is. You look through social media and there's some inflammatory or controversial article, and then you look and you're like, all right, what's the source of this? And it's like UK news or something. You're like, that's not a real
You
thing.
know what? That is such a good point to bring up, and this is what I keep trying to tell my friends because I got my master's, and
Oh,
in
okay.
doing so, we learned about scientific research
All
and
right.
where are you getting your sightings from, and it's really important to know that it's reputable or at least has correct information. So, yeah.
What is your master's in? What is your...
My master's is in education.
Oh, excellent. Have you
Yeah.
ever applied it since you've received your degree?
That's an interesting question. I have not. I pretty much chose not to teach in the area that I was in. Well, firstly, because I'm still an entertainer and that's what I do.
Yeah.
But it was awesome to get the education, and also I have created an online platform for entertainers, so it's kind of a performance school. I'm getting little bits of it are launched now,
Oh,
but
great. Okay.
yeah, so I feel like I'm using it toward that, so it's working.
Well, yeah, that's smart, and that makes sense. It's also nice. I wish I would have learned. I did fairly early on, but I wish when I was in high school there would have been a way for people to let me know how much when you apply yourself towards education, whether it's I'm largely self-educated, but
Hmm.
you apply yourself towards reading books you would never read or going to lectures or whatever it is, you learn quickly how much you can apply all that information to whatever it is you do. Especially as an improviser, I'm lucky because the more I absorb, sometimes I'm in a performance situation and I'll get a suggestion or there's something in the moment where I'm like, oh, I know a little bit about this. So if I had learned that like when I was 15, it'd be a different game. I might have gone to Yale or something, but but I'm glad that I learned it to be like, okay, what is the purpose of education? When I was a kid, it was like, what do I have to do to get this over with? Great. But then later you learn the real value of how it can enrich your life and especially, your career as a performer and where you can apply it.
That's so funny. You and I are very much alike that way because I hated school, grade school,
Yeah.
high school, all of it. And actually, I got out of school in the 10th grade. I hated it so much. I graduated early, thank God.
Wow.
I wasn't kicked out or anything. but I just wanted to speed my way out of that situation. So I did. It was great. I mean, I enjoyed it. You know, being an entertainer, we're definitely fed with the creative and all that. So the change to kind of more of an intellectual way of thinking about things was really, it served me. It was nice.
I bet it's like I love meditation. I bet there's a certain
Yeah.
correlation with meditation too, because meditation forces you. It doesn't force. No one in meditation will be like it forces you, but it makes you realize the value of presence, right? Of like the
Mm,
moment, which is handy for being an improviser too. But I bet when you
totally.
reapplied yourself, did you find the value of real facts, of things that are immediately in front of you, rather than our flighty entertainment minds that we have, which I love. It's not, it's like a calling. You reach a point or early on and you're like, okay, it's like becoming a monk where you're like, I this is what I do. There's no turning back. You know,
Yeah.
you think every year is a crossroads year where it's difficult and you're like, am I going to keep down this path? But after a while you realize like, oh, I don't know if I have any say in it anymore. It's it's it draws you constantly in. And sometimes you think you're out and it pulls you back in like the Godfather.
Yeah. Well, you know, when you're talented and people know who you are, they're going to keep calling you. So it's really hard to turn down that work, right?
That's true. That's another thing too that is interesting in entertainment. I've been thinking about where early on you have to balance out that mindset of like a lack, right? Because you're of a lot of people trying to get gigs through auditions or whatever the setup is when you first get going. And so you have this thing of scarcity in your mind, and then eventually you get you have more opportunities, and people if you're fortunate, you get lucked into or cast into different things. But I think that mindset of lack is still there to a degree, because I'll get a gig and without even thinking about it, I'll be like, yeah,
Yeah. I find what happens to me, or it happened for a while, was as soon as a contract would end, I'd, kind of be waiting for that next call. And then I'd be like, oh, it's not happening. I'm washed up. Nobody wants me. And then suddenly I'd get work again. And so what I finally had to realize is, Cody, you're always going to have work. You could even step away and not do a thing and you'd still get work. So stop
yeah.
worrying about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I had a good friend of mine pass that along to me too, and it was just an offhanded compliment or comment. But those are the things often that stick with you the most. Where she was like, "Well, someone like you're always going to work," and I was like, "Oh, but it's been true. It's
Like
been
you didn't realize it. You're like,
yeah."
oh, okay. I guess I'll be okay.
I mean, that doesn't mean there aren't peaks and valleys. I tell sometimes when parents will come up and be like, "Oh, my kid's trying to do this," I will say, "Well, and they'll say, "Oh, it's a difficult business." And I think what they mean as parents looking out for their kids is they think auditions are cruel or, there's a lot of rejection. Sure, I've always loved to audition. I think it's a mini performance I've always enjoyed. I think the
Mm,
tough part I tell people is it's the peaks and valleys which are challenging. So 1 minute you're in Venice, Italy or something on a gig, and then within a couple of weeks later you're at home being like, is the phone going to ring? What's happening? So it's developing healthy personal habits in the valleys that I've learned. I have not found out how you
yes.
develop those, but at least I'm aware of it.
No, I mean, that is completely true. And it's actually part of my training. The whole thing about managing your money as an artist, because we can get big chunks at a time or steady money for a while. And, you don't go out and buy TVs and, change your decor because you realize that, well, I might not work for a month. So this is actually 2 months' pay. My 1 month pay is actually 2 months'
Yeah.
pay.
Yep.
So if you have that mindset, then you'll make it. Otherwise, you'll be starving on the streets.
Yeah, you know what? We are similar in a lot of ways because I've always thought that too. I think I was lucky with my mom, especially, was very cost aware. So what I've always done to this day, I still do it. I save about 75% of anything I make. I still
Wow,
do it, and I've
that's
done that
impressive.
probably for I don't know, at least 2 decades or so.
So
But
did
I save
you,
75% of almost everything.
okay, so you want to get married or?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's try it. We'll send out some evites. It'll all be
Because I
online.
saved 25%, so that makes
Yeah,
100%. We're good.
we got it. See, this is what this was all about. And it can all be online. There'll be evites. Our ceremony will be through Zoom. We'll go on a virtual honeymoon.
And we'll have a virtual relationship.
Yes, that's good. That's good. Eventually, a couple counseling will be on Google platform. We'll figure it all out.
Yeah, and we could live stream it. We could invite everybody because it would be, just like another performance because, it'll be hilarious.
I love it. We'll adopt some kids and we'll live stream them as well.
And, teach them what we do and then we'll be their agents.
Just to fill out these Zoom squares. That's all we're going for. So there's like 4 squares, a couple of kids, square for the dog.
Yeah, but you can have up to 100 squares. So this might be a big project we're embarking on.
Yeah, let me run a budget on that. I'm not sure yet. I'll look at that. I didn't know you could have so many squares. I think the most I've had is 7. I didn't know you could do 100.
Yeah, I'll show you. I'll send you a picture. It's true. It's true.
What's the most you've had in a Zoom platform? How many have you been involved with?
Let's see. I think there was about 17 on one, but I did see one that was just full, like 6 per row, like 10 rows. Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah. So you can invite more people on your Second City gigs.
Yeah, we have a pretty good audience, which is strange because we've had as many as, I don't know, 6,000 people watching the show. But
that's amazing.
What's strange about it, and that I don't like, I'm very grateful that there's an outlet to perform and to stay connected to people. But I think it's like any performer. I know it's like any performer, but comedians are especially need this thing is like the praise of a chat box that just says ha 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 H-A-H-A-H.
I saw that the other day because I just had a little bit at the beginning of the show that we did, and I was watching that and you guys, and as performers we need feedback, so it's really hard to perform to a blank screen of people just chatting. So it is too bad that you can't invite 5,000 people on the screen with you, to be like, and laughing.
Yeah. Then you run the risk, though, of some joker or singer being like, oh, I can also, let me join in. Let me join in on the chorus.
That would be their audition for sure. So let's see. Let me talk about some of the Second City shows that you've done. Or if you want to give me a claim to fame of something that you want to talk about, tell us.
No, I love that. I was just thinking earlier when I said like different opportunities that land in your lap. One that I've enjoyed and is of course not existent this year is the last couple of years I've been performing at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. And you wouldn't think, I grew up in a town of about 30,000 or so in New Mexico, and never did I think, even when I was doing small town radio, it's like one day you'll perform at the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. So just walking in there, and I was doing 8 shows a week over this the summer of 19 and 18. And so when you have opportunities like that, you're just like, oh yeah, this calling and the ups and downs. It's pretty great when you're performing and there's ambassadors in the audience. And we had a cool experience in 18 where Norman Lear was in the audience at the Kennedy Center.
No way.
And it gets crazier. At intermission, they go, he'd like to meet you guys, not the other way around. They go, Mr. Lear would like to meet you after the show. We were like, what? So I was the first one to the little green room, and he's sitting there, and I walk in and he goes, he's in his 90s. He said, that show added 2 months to my life. And I was like, that's a great compliment.
That is great.
I think I have used it as a pull quote somewhere. But then he also said, is there any way I can get a picture with you guys? Like, he's asking for this stuff. It wasn't us badgering him. So that was a cool experience. But that's an example of like this great experience that I've had in the time I've been with the Second City. I'm an alum, which means I'm in the same cool fraternity as people like Tina Fey and Odenkirk and Keegan-Michael Key and people like that. I don't have their career, but it's nice to be like within that group of these cool. Not yet. I'm hoping this Zoom really zooms me to the top. But it's cool that being with them to have these different experiences. You and I met on a cruise ship.
Yes, we did.
In 2010.
A decade ago.
I can't believe it.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe it either. Your beard's really grown.
Yeah, it was just like barely just a 5 o'clock shadow back then. What did you like the most about that experience being on the ship?
You know, it was the first time I'd ever been on a cruise ship, ever, ever, ever. And I had no idea they were so huge. We were on the Epic, and it was actually the biggest ship of its kind at the time,
Yeah,
and now
that's right. I
they've
forgot
made
about
them even bigger. But
that.
it was a gorgeous ship. Um, You know, I really loved being a part of the entertainment group, and we were like family. We got to visit, Mexico and different places, and go to exotic places all the time. And we'd see each other on the beach drinking mai tais. That was the most fun for me, and also, just the high quality theatrical presentation. Just the best of the best. Gorgeous
Yeah,
theater, all that.
I agree. Some entertainers, and not so much late people because they have a wider spectrum, but some entertainers are like, oh, cruise ships. But our ship, and that was 10 years ago. There's been
Yeah,
advancements even greater since then. Our
yeah.
ship was a great example of what ships can do. It was Legends in Concert, the Second City, Blue Man Group, a
Mm-hmm.
Cirque du Soleil type show. It wasn't Cirque du Soleil, but it was a type show of amazing world acrobats. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, and like I said, that was 10 years ago. So now it's even more advanced. So when I go out there, and I've learned that as when I do stand up as well, the stand ups that are out there, it's like huge credits, HBO specials, and that kind of stuff. So it's not the floating, there's nothing wrong with Branson, but it used to be like a floating Branson, where it's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's buffets and the shows aren't that great. These are actually, yeah, some amazing performances.
Yeah. So when you go out there now, is it with Second City, or are you a headliner doing your
I,
own show?
Yeah, I'm doing my own show now as a guest entertainer. The Second City
Oh,
contract,
nice.
yeah, with the cruise line we were with ended a couple of years ago, and then I was fortunate to keep those relationships alive. And I go, hey, you know what I'd like to do? I'd like to go out under this other umbrella and do stuff. So that started last. Oh, wait a minute. I guess I've been doing that a year and a half. Pandemic really throws off your timeline, but about a
Man.
year and a half I've been out there as a solo improviser, stand up, and I mix the two. As an improviser, it's along the lines of like my heroes, which are like Jonathan Winters and kind of solo improvisers. But then I've been doing
Hmm.
straight stand up as well too. And of course, the way it works when I was on this last ship, I really had the theater shows. There's a club on there that would be like you'd go to a club anywhere, which is about 300 people. But then we also do a couple of theater shows, which are 800 to 1,000 people. And I finally got my theater shows where I was like, it was great. They were really rolling and I was super enjoying it. And then it's like, okay, hit pause for indefinitely. So,
Yeah, you know what's funny about that too? I did the same thing about 2 years ago. I put together my Madonna show, but then I ended up with some contacts who got me in, finally got through the door, and
yeah, yeah.
I was literally putting together some different options of shows for them. And yeah, and all this happened. What did I want to ask you? You're not coming to Vegas on any kind of contracts, do you ever?
No, no Vegas yet. I would love to. I was out there. This is kind of braggy, but the last time I was there, I shot a TV pilot for ABC, and we were down on Fremont Street. So my last memory of working in Vegas was a great one. It was it was like fantasy camp. This cool experience. Nothing became of it because I'd be talking about that show still, but it was ABC. It was called a proof of concept, meaning it wasn't just a random shot in the dark like most pilots are. This is something that ABC said we're going to put some money behind it. So for 3 days, we shot on Fremont near that container mall area.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were right in there, and it was fantastic, and it was kind of an off the wall thing that suits my weird sense of humor as far as like crazy stunts with audience members. An example is we had a talent show portion where we had these various acts. I think they were all from Las Vegas too, but we had them on a turntable. So when the audience had their phones and they would vote, and if they didn't like them, the stage would rotate and a new act would come up. So weird stuff like that I love. So that was the last time I was in Vegas, but I love it there. And I come from a rodeo family, so as a kid, I would
What?
spend every December in Las Vegas during the National Finals Rodeo. So
I
for a
just did
long
that
time.
last year. Just
Yeah,
did
what'd you
it.
think?
Yeah.
It's different, huh?
Oh, no, it was awesome. I mean, I grew up with horses and things too. I grew up kind of hanging out in the mountains with my grandparents and, just a lot of animals and a lot of the scenery and nature. I love it. I'm kind of a
Yeah,
country
I definitely.
girl, believe it or
That's
not.
see, I totally get it. I've adjusted a little bit better, but I used to think it was kind of a curse because I grew up in a rural area, but all my work was always in cities. And I was like, oh man, I'm definitely a wide open spaces type person. But then if I spend a little time in any city, whether it's Vegas or Chicago or New York or whatever, and you go to a great museum or you go to a cool restaurant, you can't go to anywhere else, you're like, cities are pretty great too.
Well, it's nice to have the option to do both, and what we
Yeah.
do really offers us that. We get to travel the world, we get to go to the best cities, we get to perform in the most amazing theaters. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
you have to appreciate it though. It's an amazing thing that we have to appreciate.
That's a great thing to bring up that attitude of being grateful because many times in the last year I've been in an airport, whether it was like Italy or even LAX, and it's like an 8 hour layover, and I was cursing everything. And now I'm like, I would gladly go back there if I only
Aw.
knew then. It's those things. It's always, in retrospect, you can appreciate things a lot better. But there were many times in the last couple of years where I'm like, oh, these layovers and these itineraries are killing me. And now it's like, just to be able to travel freely now, I would love for that to be happening.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so. Do you find that you travel more than you're at home?
Yeah, and especially since I've been going out in the Second City, it's a theatrical experience. So you work in an ensemble, and then when you're a solo act, they can really shoot you everywhere. So once I got this new agent for doing my solo comedy work, I found that I was home. I guess an average would be gone 3 weeks out of the month and home just about 6 days or so. You know, and I
Yeah.
was loving it because I'm like, oh, this is what I wanted to do. I was fortunate enough to, be approved to get into that kind of booking situation. So I love it. But yeah, you are gone a lot, which is I'm at the family ranch in New Mexico now. So this was the year. In fact, during May was a time where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna look and get a place somewhere. And now I'm in this holding pattern. So I'm like, eh. The excuse before was I was traveling too much, and now the excuse is like we can't do anything. So we'll see once things open up a little bit.
Oh wow. So you have a ranch with chickens and horses or what?
Yeah, we have horses and some dogs, of course, and no cattle or anything. Just it's like a small horse ranch. My sister and my parents, two different residences there on the same property. So I'm very lucky to be out here, like in a rural area where you can just go. I go for long walks every day and not
Oh,
have to worry
that's
about
awesome.
putting on a mask and a suit of armor to go to Trader Joe's or whatever. It's nice.
That's excellent. I've never
Yeah.
actually been out there, so it's one of the cities I haven't been to.
It's different. If you've seen Breaking Bad, that's it's pretty much a documentary.
I haven't. I can't watch stuff like that. It's too
Oh,
scary for me.
oh,
It's
it's a lot.
it's
It's
just
a
too
lot.
dark, I like to live in my own little happy bubble as much as I can.
What's your favorite television show of all time? Do you have one that comes to mind?
Television show of
Like a
all
show
time?
that you were really into?
I think anything in the past is good. I have a problem with a lot of the newer comedy series. I just feel like I don't laugh, as much at the new comedy
Oh yeah,
series.
yeah. I think part of the trend though too in comedy is, and it's not necessarily, it's definitely not my style really, but this trend of like exploring your origin story, and I think that bleeds over into sitcoms and stuff too, where it's like pathos rather than just like a good written script. Or Jerry Seinfeld talks about that a lot, where it's like, hey, funny's funny, I don't need to hear your dark past. That doesn't really enter into it, and I subscribe to a lot of that stuff. I think it's good. A lot of performers, as you do this well, is you always put a large part of yourself out there, for better or worse, because then when it's difficult, it feels like it's hard to separate. But yeah, I think comedy's kind of taken that turn where it's like, oh, my angst, and this is how express myself. And I've never really been. I've kind of been a goofier kind of performer rather than I'm a sad clown. I'm just kind of a clown.
Everybody Loves Raymond comes to mind. I do
Oh
like that
yeah,
show. That one cracks me up. The annoying husband and just the wife, the way she was, she just cracked me up. She was just so
yeah.
hardcore and she was in charge, clearly, and
Yeah,
that's kind of me.
that is a great show. And then the guy that played his dad is from
Yeah,
the Second City, Peter Boyle. Unfortunately, no longer with us. But
I know.
uh, and his most famous credit was he played the monster in Young Frankenstein, which that scene
Yes.
when they reveal the monster to the audience in the theater, I think is the funniest movie scene of all time. I think it kills me. I think it's hilarious. But yeah, you're right. That's a great show. And then Brad Garrett, of course, he has a huge presence in Vegas with his club at the MGM, and that's a
Yeah,
great
I've
show.
hung out with him before. We did a an awards thing together. He was the presenter, and I think I had a moment where I had to give an award or something.
He seems like a great guy, pretty down to
He
earth,
was
right?
doing a roast that night, and it got
Okay.
pretty colorful. So
Yeah, yeah. He
I
can do
wasn't
that.
sure what to think about him.
Yeah, people don't realize that because on the show he was like Ray, he's got his character on that show, but then you see his stand up and stuff. Yeah, he can work pretty blue.
Yeah, I want to check it out for sure. I'd love to see you too. I'll post some things below. I'll make
Oh, I
sure
appreciate
that
that.
people can see what you do. I think without me even asking these things, we covered
Yeah.
everything. I
I love
really
it,
appreciate it.
man.
Yeah.
Hey, these things give me such a life to be able to connect with you and have and also besides just getting a reason to be like, oh, let's engage in basic personal hygiene today. Yeah, let's get
I
cleaned up for this
know.
thing.
I
This
mean, I don't
jacket I
know.
had bought before the pandemic, I've only worn it 3 times, so I'm like, ooh, let's put the new jacket on.
Yeah, definitely. I know I have a pretty large wardrobe, and then I also have a lot of costumes. So it's been nice to do this every week and also perform every week because I'm making use of these things. Because if this pandemic keeps going, I think I'm going to sell everything.
But yeah, that would be something if you had to cut down on your inventory. It would be like Sotheby's or something, the kind of gear you have.
I know, I know. You have
Yeah.
no idea.
When Debbie Reynolds' collection there in Vegas, when she had to liquidate that, the amazing things that she had on display. And then I think the Liberace Museum did that to a certain degree, but it's insane when you have these massive collections of entertainment history and they're like, all right, it took so long to collect those things and a lot of money. And then they're like, all right, let's put it all on eBay.
It makes me sad to think that I would give that away.
And it's a cool living legacy thing too. I'm the same way. I think I still have when I first got hired by the Second City, I still have that suit. In fact, I know I do. I
Oh
still have
yeah.
that suit somewhere, and
Aw.
I'll never get rid of it. It's just one suit, but that stuff does add up.
Well, I still have the sword from Conan the Barbarian because I did that at Universal Studios. I
You
should have
did.
brought it. I have
We
two of them.
are we are insanely linked up, you and I, because I was a studio guide at Universal Studios
Ah,
for this late '90s for a couple of summers,
in
and
Studio City?
in Studio City, yeah, that
Ah.
they offered like free acting classes and stuff, which were fun because you know how that place is, especially studio guides. It's all aspiring young performers, but that's amazing. I
I
remember the
love it.
Conan show. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a badass. You have no idea.
Yeah. Oh man, I got to see. You have photos somewhere of you in the Conan show or clips or anything?
Oh yeah, I do.
Well, you have
I'll
to
do a
send it to me
flash.
or
Yeah.
direct me. Yeah.
All right, Cody. God, this has been so much fun. Thanks for talking to me today.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me, and we'll work together soon on something.
Yes, definitely. Take care and thanks so much. And everybody out there, just dream, dare, and do it.